Welcome back, scientist. We saw in our last read aloud of Ubiquitous how poems provide a memorable context for our science study about how plants and animals adapt to survive. Today, we will read 3 additional poems about nature's survivors and the accompanying nonfiction information. We will examine and use the elements of poetry to deepen our knowledge. The descriptive language used by the poet will help us remember key concepts and important facts. The vivid image and humorous tone of several of the poems help us link new information to our own lives and experiences. Does anyone remember what ubiquitous means? Go ahead and call out your answers. Right, ubiquitous is something that is, or seems to be, everywhere at the same time. So far, we read 3 poems: Gecko on the Wall, The Ants, and Grass. Based on what we've already read, why do you think the book is titled Ubiquitous? Those were some great thoughts. And it's titled that way because these plants and animals are common and all over the world. But we don't often think a lot about them. I mean, really, unless the ant is bugging you, how often do you think about ants and grass? Today we're going to look at squirrels, crows, and dandelions. Do you think these subjects of the poems are ubiquitous? Have you ever seen them? The poem is written in the shape of a squirrel, and I notice there's hardly any punctuation. I'm going to have to take a deep breath before I read this one. I do see a couple commas, and down towards here there's an ellipse where we have the 3 periods together and a question mark at the end. I think the lack of punctuation will make this poem flow rapidly, kind of simulating how squirrels scurry about quickly in nature. Tail. Okay, your brains are big while ours are just the size of walnuts, which we love to eat, by the way, with teeth that can chew through any sort of bird feeder you care to erect. And believe me, we will find them no matter where you put them, being insatiably curious and natural-born problem solvers, just as we find the nuts we cleverly hid last fall all over your yard, even though you let your dog out at every opportunity. Sure, dogs run fast, but what can they do in a tree? Nothing, besides paw the trunk and stare at us hungrily as we dash from limb to limb, sailing out over the leaves with our parachute tails, which, by the way, act as an umbrella, float, flag, rudder, and the warmest, softiest, coziest quilt that you could ever imagine. Oh, yes, indeed, your brains are bigger. Bigger brains versus treetop living with a free fur coat and the ability to crack any safe known to man. Now, really, which would you choose if you actually had a choice, which you don't? Whew! I will say one of my big takeaways was the dog chasing them. I know my dog loves to paw at the trees where the squirrels are. The way the poem is written from the squirrel's point of view stirs my sense of sound and the visuals in my imagination. Let's kind of go back to the poem and see if we can find some facts that the squirrel shares about its life. Well, right away, its brain's the size of a walnut. They are pretty tiny creatures, but they love to eat nuts, and they kind of chew through with their teeth. They've got really sharp teeth, and they can get at bird feeders too. And they're always curious. They run away from dogs, and that their tails can keep them warm and help them jump and almost glide and fly between the trees. We learned a lot from that creative, fast, and humorous poem. Let's see if our facts are substantiated and complemented in the nonfiction passage about squirrels. Squirrels. And these are about 36 million years old, so even newer than grass. One of the oldest groups of mammals, squirrels first evolved in North America and spread to other continents during periods of great continental shifts and climate change, when other, less successful mammals disappeared. One of the reasons squirrels thrived is that many of them adapted to life in the trees, where few predators could follow them. To this day, speed, climbing ability, and the world's most versatile tail enable them to evade mid-level predators such as coyotes or foxes. They are also omnivores, eating anything handy: seeds, nuts, fruits, insects, mushrooms, small mammals, and frogs. Most squirrels live very happily alongside humans, raiding food sources at will and gnawing with ease through wood, plastic, even metal. Squirrels survive cold northern winters by scatter hoarding, burying nuts and seeds and then digging them up later. Some of these nuts are forgotten and sprout into saplings. Thus, it is said that industrious squirrels plant more trees than humans do. Wow, what facts surprised you? Yeah, I always thought too that squirrels really just ate nuts. I thought it was interesting to learn that they might eat some other small mammals or even frogs. And we did see again how they um, collect and bury all of their nuts. And I love how it really pointed out how their adaptations are what have helped them to survive. Let's take a look at another animal. So here is the crow. Let's look at another poem and see if we can enjoy the rhythmic and description language of a poem while figuring out what it is we're learning. Crow. A single crow against the sky. Where do you wing your way and why? What message do you cry out shrill to treetops cloaked in autumn's chill? With coal black eyes and strutting feet, what private counsels will you greet? What secret orders were you given? What deeds to do? What plots to thicken? What grand, colossal, crow-filled schemes take shape in your collective dreams? So this poem is a little bit different. It was shorter than some of the other ones we've read, and it's just about someone kind of looking at a crow and thinking about them. What lines did you enjoy from the poem? What is something you think you learned from the poem? I will say one of the things that I pulled out was that they have a loud cry. They've got black eyes. But a lot of this leads to the myths around crows that they're not the nicest birds. And they kind of play the bad guy in a lot of fairy tales too. So let's see what we can learn about them in the prose. So they're 20 million years old. We're getting younger and younger all the time. Crows and their cousins, ravens and jays, for example, belong to the most intelligent family of birds, the corvids. Curious and adaptable. Oh, adaptable. They have excellent memories and have been observed making tools such as hooked twigs to secure food, something only great apes and humans are otherwise known to do. Found throughout the world, except in South America and the poles, crows have highly developed social systems and use interactive play to test physical and mental powers, strengthen relationships, and increase status. Sounds a lot like how humans act. They play chase with each other in flight, pretend fight, and even play tug of war with moss or sticks. They will often band together to attack or mob larger birds that prey on them. Multiple family units or clans often roost together at night in huge cawing flocks that may reach 1 million individuals or more. Crows' omnivorous scavenging diet and tendency to live in open farmland have made them close neighbors of humans since early history, and they are present in many mythologies. We see them in lots of stories. In recent years, they have thrived on increasing amounts of human garbage and roadkill, and have even been observed dropping large nuts at highway intersections so that passing cars will crack them open. So, wow, we really learned a lot of amazing facts about crows there. We can see how that poem kind of supports the idea that they're in mythology and a lot of different stories. But we've learned that they're pretty smart for birds, or any animal really. They use tools. They have a great social system like we do as humans. They even pretend, fight, and play with each other. So we learned a lot of amazing things there about crows. On this 2-page spread here, we can see some different dandelions. Can you think of where you've seen dandelions before? Let's start with our poem first. Fluffhead. Did you know dandelions grow their hair just as we do? Each pale, silky thread springs straight from their head. They were all blondes, of course, and each one a star. Now they can't stand long in a breeze, or their fairy hair flees. So what did we learn there? That they start blonde, we know that means like a yellow color, and they turn into fairy hair that is blown by the wind. Let's see what else we learn in the prose. Dandelions. So these are 5 million years old. They're much, much younger than where we started, especially way back with the geckos. A spectacularly successful flower through the cooler parts of the world, the dandelion was named for its jagged leaves, which resemble the teeth of a lion, or dents de lion, in French. Unlike other wildflowers, which will grow only in certain environments, the dandelion thrives in any type of soil wherever sun is available. So we can see here it's definitely ubiquitous. It can thrive in lots of different places. First, it sinks a thick taproot into the earth from which the plant can completely regrow, even if snipped by a hungry rabbit or lawnmower. So that's pretty cool. You can rip off the top part, it can get eaten or cut, and it'll grow back. Then, once established, it spreads its hardy green leaves in a wide, flat circle, or rosette, which crowds out other plants. Dandelions have an ingenious method of reproducing. Each brilliant yellow blossom is made up of many small flowers, rich with pollen, which attract bees and other insects for pollination. After a few days, the flower head closes up, and each individual flower develops into a seed with a feathery stalk. Then the flower head reopens as a distinctive white fluff ball, a mass of seeds, each with its own tiny parachute, that fly off with the wind to populate yet another lawn. Pretty ubiquitous. It can grow anywhere. So each of these plants and animals has developed very unique qualities that have allowed them to adapt to changing environments and to extend all over the world. Squirrels have been successful because their tails allow them to move through the trees. Crows have been successful by working in large groups, and dandelions have been successful by adapting feather-like seeds that fly far in the wind. We have learned a lot about adaptations by reading both the nonfiction and the poetry selections. In the poems, we glimpsed at the life of a squirrel through the animal's own perspective and felt how rapidly it thinks and works to survive. We felt the power of the crow soaring through the sky and the gentle spreading of the soft, fuzzy seeds of the dandelion in the breeze. Poets, like scientists, keenly observe their world. They also use descriptive language to open our eyes and help us visualize and remember how each of these plants and animals is unique and ubiquitous.